live on YouTube.
Not just yet. Almost though.
Okay.
Okay, now we are live on YouTube.
Oh God. Oh God. Wait, where's my makeup? No, I need to do makeup.
Well, let me go ahead and send everybody the link for the live stream because nobody knows we're here yet. So there we go. And y'all can join the YouTube as well if you want to hang out in the chat. Simone will be moderating on our side all the different questions and things like that. So, and if you guys want to, answer questions in the chat, that is totally fine as well. But that link right there, you can always also share on social media if you like. Yes. The limitations of live streaming and all the different potential platforms you can use. It's always a fun adventure that somebody needs to solve. All right. Well, let me go ahead and share my screen really quickly. If I can find, there we go. All right, can everybody see my screen? Does it look okay?
Yeah.
Is it small?
Yeah.
That looks better. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to Vue Contributor Days. So excited. Just like Maya was just talking about missing conferences. Oh my gosh, I think we all do. And I think that's why Contributor Days has been even more interesting and more fun this past year and a half or so, because it's just such a great way to like connect and hang out. And, I think we all miss like the speaker room conversations and the hallway tracks and things like that. So, and the innovation that comes out of that. So really, really excited to do Vue Contributor Days. Thank you so much, Evan, for just, always being open and like, using this as a platform to like gather feedback and, just do this with us. So do you have any like quick Vue like updates or whatever you want to say on this slide that you won't say on your other slides?
Not really. Yeah. Thanks for always providing this platform. Yeah, last time it was we had some really constructive outcome, so hopefully this one will too.
Yeah, totally. So thanking this.labs, I love that the work at this.labs enables us to be able to do all the community stuff, because if I could just do community stuff 24/7 or maybe like 24/7. Yeah, 24/7 is right. Yes. Then I totally would. At this we're about a 50% consultancy. We love our clients. I think one of the most exciting things we're doing right now is helping Wikimedia with their Vue migration, which is really fun. But if you like working on new modern technologies and working with really cool and fun companies and solving hard problems, definitely email us anytime. This is how I make friends. So jobs@this.co, and always happy to have a little chat with y'all. Upcoming events. Actually, that's next week. My gosh, next week we have a State of Angular happening for those women in tech, or if you know women in tech, definitely get them to join us for the monthly mentoring that we do. It's a closed space for an hour just to chat, whatever level you are. It's something that we're really passionate about doing. Then we'll have State of Microservices a little later on in the month. And then we will also have State of Accessibility. So definitely tune in on those if you're not familiar with some of the other events that we do. Today we have, I'll be one of your hosts. My name's Tracy. You can follow me on Twitter @LadyLeet. And I'm the CEO of this.labs. And then Evan, of course, creator of Vue.js. And lucky human to be able to do open source full time. Amazing. And then Simone as well, who is a software architect at this dot. And Simone has actually gathered a ton of questions from the community. So again, if you're listening as well, definitely feel free to ask questions in the chat and we will get to them as quickly as we can. But thank you, Simone, also for gathering a bunch of different questions from the community. And thank you so much for all the panelists who have decided to spend some time with us today. The conversations are going to be amazing. We're going to have community updates and everything like that. If everybody just wants to do like a quick 10-second introduction to yourselves, maybe starting with Ben, we can just go down the list.
Sounds good. Hello, everybody. So my name is Ben. I'm a staff developer experience engineer at Netlify and do a lot on the core team as far as like docs and community organizing. So yeah, happy to be here. I'll pass the ball to Rahul.
Hey, I'm Rahul. I'm a software engineer at Grammarly. And I work here and there on core team, mostly in compiler side of things. To you, Thorsten. On mute.
My name is Thorsten Lümborg. I work as a product owner, so I'm leading an engineering team, working at a customer portal for Amplify Dynamic in Germany, and I'm a Vue core team member, working here and there and everywhere. Very prominent on Discord. If you have a question, I try and pop in. Guillaume.
Hi, my name is Guillaume Shaw, and I'm part of the Vue core team, and I mostly work on, as part of the Vue core team, I mostly work on the Vue Devtools and the Vue UI.
Anthony next.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, my name is Anthony, and I'm a team member of Vue and Vite. So I used to work on open source full time, and now I just joined Next Labs for doing the Vite integrations for Next 3. So yeah, that's all for me. John?
Hi, I'm John Leader. I'm the author and founder of Beautify. And yeah, that's it.
Hi, it's my turn, I guess. So hi, I'm Kia. I'm also a Vue core team member, and my main focus is UX, and also working on with VitePress as well. And maybe some new stuff is coming on to VitePress too. So stay tuned. Next is Hao Kung Jing.
Hello, I'm Hao Kung Jing, and I'm also a core team member of the Vue team and the Vite team. I'm the full-time open source developer in the Vue team, and my focus is on Vue.js build tools, including Vue CLI, and now I also work on Vite-related stuff, and that's for me.
Hi, my name is Kazia Kawaguchi. I'm core team member. I'm also of Vue team. I'm working at Play Inc. Thanks.
Thank you. And yeah, we can start off with Daniel for the next.
Hi, I'm Daniel Rowe. I'm on the core team of Nuxt, which is pretty cool.
Okay. Hey, I'm Prakowski. I'm CTO and co-founder of Vue Storefront. I'm particularly interested in e-commerce and performance, so you also may know me from my conference talks about web performance or a series on Vue School about web performance. Hey. Maya?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Maya Shirvin, and I'm a senior software engineer at Microsoft. And I'm also a core team member of the Storefront UI. And I'm also a Nuxt ambassador. That's a lot. And Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jonathan. I'm a creator and maintainer of Chakra UI Vue, and I'm also a UI engineer and engineering manager at rcta.ai.
And I'm also a core team member of the Storefront Vue.
Over to Yale. Yale. I'm sorry.
My name is Yael Guillou. I'm a team member of Vue, and I also work for Nox Labs on the Docus project. Your turn, Carlos.
Hello, my name is Carlos. I'm part of the Vue core team member and also do consultancy gigs, and that's pretty much it. More focused on the TypeScript side of the Vue Next currently. It's your turn, Liam.
Hi, I'm Liam DeBeasy. I'm the lead developer on Ionic Vue, which is our UI toolkit for building cross-platform apps with Vue 3. I'm very excited to be here. I'll pass it to Luke next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luke from Australia, and I'm one of the Quasar core team members, and I'm mostly focused on education. So I do mostly education videos for Quasar. Over to you, Carlo.
I'm Paolo Reffi. I'm a member of the Quasar core team, with mainly focusing on TypeScript support and now testing. I also work on my own company, DreamMonkey, which do web app development and consultancies. To Fred, I guess.
Fred? Is Fred muted?
I wish I could see, but I'm screen sharing.
Looks like Fred is disconnected.
Okay, well, we'll come back to Fred later on, but exciting that he's working on Astro. Did we miss anybody? Anybody that's not on the slides that needs to introduce themselves? Okay,
Yes,
great.
that should be on.
Yeah. So quickly going over, I just want to give you an all idea of the agenda. Apologies that it's only in one time zone. But basically, this is the introduction, and then, well, introduction was a little longer, I think, than we expected. But Evan will be going into State of Vue next, and we'll be having a great discussion about that. Also Q&A. This is where, again, we've gathered a bunch of questions from the community, but panelists, feel free to just like jump in, have it be organic, right? We're all just having discussions here, and feedback is great. Then we'll have a quick bio break. We'll do community updates as well, where there's a bunch of folks who have a lot of amazing updates about what's going on within the Vue community, which is going to be awesome as well. And then we'll just have an open-ended discussion as well. Just a quick reminder as well that there is a code of conduct that the Vue community abides by. So please be nice to each other. And yeah, I think with that, Evan, I'll let you take it over.
All right, thank you, Tracy.
Of course.
So I'll be sharing my screen.
Yep, give me 1 second. Let me go ahead and let you do that. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so can everybody see the screen share now? Just want to make sure.
Yet. No.
Apparently, no.
Oh, wait, I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry. I thought it's just a thing on your side. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. So this will be a really quick update. I will assume most participants are kind of familiar with the basic stuff. So we'll mostly focus on what's being new and some of the high level plans, things that we think is important or worth discussing. So the latest update is obviously we released 3.2 back in August. So not long ago, and it turned out to be actually a much bigger release than I had planned. So we shipped a ton of stuff. First of all, script setup is out of experimental. For users who use composition API in single file components, this is a pretty big quality of life improvement. And it's been working pretty well so far. Style vbind also out of experimental. This allows you to essentially bind a CSS property with a piece of state from your component reactively, also with very minimal overhead at runtime. So this is kind of just an improvement on top of the existing SFC style features. We also ship define custom element, allows you to essentially wrap any Vue component as a native custom element. This has previously in Vue 2, we had this as a separate library, but in Vue 3, we just decided this is better shipped as part of the core. And also this is because since Vue 3 has now tree shaking, so if you don't use this feature, it doesn't have as much impact on the bundle size of your app, right? So we're aware that there are a few cases that this API currently has issues with, specifically with CSS styling extraction. So we're probably going to work on that before we go on new features for 3.3. So this is something we're aware of and will be addressed. And also some important reactivity performance improvements, thanks to some really impressive PRs from the community. Effect scope API that unlocks some more advanced reactivity patterns, which is now already being in use in Vue.use and Pinia. ESM built an improved streaming API for the server renderer. So this is pretty cool in the sense that you can now easily bundle Vue server renderer for worker environments. For example, in Cloudflare workers for edge rendering. We also provided new streaming APIs that allows you to essentially hook the rendering output to any kind of streams. We also have high-level wrappers for no streams and web streams. So pretty flexible now. Also a new directive called vmemo. This is really for advanced performance optimizations. Not really commonly needed, but could be useful in cases where you are rendering a lot of rows in V4. This is the primary use case for it. And that is pretty much for 3.2. Actually, before going into some of the new RFCs, there is one small thing I kind of want to mention that we recently shipped in 3.2.13. So it was shipped in a patch because it didn't really constitute any sort of API change. But this is probably important for tooling authors to know that after 3.2.13, we expose @Vue/compiler SFC and @Vue/server renderer. These two packages, previously you need to install them separately when you have a Vue project that needs to compile single file components or do server-side rendering. After that version, these two packages are now actually dependencies of the main Vue package, and you can access them directly as, just remove the @ So now you can access them as directly as Vue/compiler SFC or Vue/server renderer. Now, the benefit of this is first, you just need to install one package. There's no more need to manually keep all the packages in sync, right? Because previously we require these packages to always have the same version, but now since they're under the same package, they're always the same version. So if you work on a tooling that depends on these two packages, you can essentially, if you control the Vue version of Vue you're using, you can essentially upgrade to a version beyond 3.2.13, and you can now drop @Vue/compiler SFC or @Vue server renderer, instead use the deep import from the main Vue package. So this is, this only affects tooling authors, but I think this is also a good improvement because it avoids the sort of version mismatch that could potentially happen in userland projects. Okay, so two important new RFCs that's still pending discussion. One is the ref transform. If you go to, so the discussion is in the Vue.js/RFCs repo, discussion number 369. And the gist of it is so this example kind of illustrates it. We have a few new compile time macros. Instead of using the import ref from Vue, you prepend it with a $sign. And now this is a reactive variable. It works like a normal variable, except that it's reactive. So if you assign it a new value, it will just trigger updates. Essentially, the whole purpose of the ref transform is so that you can rely on reactivity without having to use .value. So this would feel pretty Svelte-like, right? And the underlying transform is also really straightforward. So as you can see, on the left is the code you write. On the right, we simply remove the $sign. We will auto import the ref if it's not already in the file. And any access or mutation to the variable binding in the same scope, you will see that it has a $. Appended. And that's pretty much it. This works in nested functions. This works even outside of Vue components, right? The main benefit of it is it works outside of Vue components. Now, some lower level details, if you dive into the RFC, you will see this, but it's really about how the concept came about. The whole transform is centered around two operations. One is turning refs, which are actual objects, into reactive variables. And the other one is turning them back into actual refs, because sometimes you need the actual ref to be passed around into other functions, or essentially when you pass them across function boundaries, you need to convert them back into actual refs. Now, so there are two operations. And the $ref that we just saw is essentially a shorthand for $wrapping the ref. So here's an example of using the transform inside a composable. So this is kind of the very standard example we always use to explain what a composable composition function is, right? You have a use mouse. Previously, you would declare them as actual refs, and you would have to use x.value here. Now you can just assign them. And so all the code, so the only thing changes really, you change this to use the $. Notation. And now everything works like normal variables. And the end of it, when you return them, wrap the returned object with the $, and it will just actually return the actual refs, right? Because if you don't do this, we're actually returning just two numbers, but you want to return the actual refs to retain the reactivity. But the nice thing is the only the only change you're making is at the top where you declare these variables, and at the bottom where you return them. So all the logic in the middle will be simplified. Now, when you consume composables, right? So this would also work not just on these using the syntax, right? The usage here, this will work on any kind of existing Vue use functions, for example. The $sign not just converts single refs to variables, it also supports destructuring an object of refs into reactive variables. So when you use this syntax, these are also similar compilation. These work like variables, but are underlying their actual refs. So as we can see here, this transform is not Vue component specific. So we can apply them to actually any kind of JSTS files. It would work everywhere. So that is the new ref transform. So feedback is greatly appreciated. And another thing is the props Destructor transform. The discussion is 394. Notice this, I don't have a formal RFC for this feature yet. So this is linked to the actual proposal is down in the comment thread, and we already have a pull request for that. Basically, the idea is, well, currently when we use props inside script setup, you have to use define props, right? And one of the common gotchas in Vue's reactivity system is you do not destructure the props, right? Maybe you have been bitten by that. If you destructure the props, you lose the reactivity. In order to retain the reactivity, you have to always do props dot something. Otherwise, it won't be tracked as reactive. But with compile time transforms, we can actually support syntax like this that allows you to destructure. It also covers default values, so you don't need to use with defaults when using this syntax. You can alias a prop to another local variable. You can even do rest spread, right? All of this will be compiled into whatever that should work as expected. And these destructured variables will actually also be reactive. So for example, if you use it inside watch effect, this will be compiled into props.foo after compilation. And similarly, so this has the same gotcha, like say, when you want to pass it into an external function, you need to remember to sort of wrap it in a getter. So there will be some caveats to this. This is also why this is experimental, right? So we would like to see some feedback in the discussion thread as well. But we believe this will be, compare this to the syntax using with defaults. We believe that this will be also a pretty good quality of life improvement. Okay, so the new documentation. So as I have teased a few times on Twitter, we've been working really hard on the new docs. So Vue.js/docs in the next branch. So know this branch is heavily work in progress. So just if you're looking at the current code, a lot of them is not updated yet. So please do not send PRs or suggest changes until we complete the whole revamp. There is a staging deployment. So I want to walk through some of the high level things that we have been working on. So this is a new page, and first thing notice is we have a dark mode now. Pretty sweet. The other thing is we completely rewrote the introduction. So we want to be, the main thing we noticed, a few things we noticed is first, our users, previously our docs is focused on a no build tool experience. You start with absolutely no knowledge of build tools or single file components, and we only introduce as kind of an advanced concept later. But in reality, we see that in reality, our developers, 90% developers on Twitter responded they're using single file components. So this is actually the mainstream usage. So you want to kind of adjust the documentation to reflect that, right? So in the new introduction, you will be introduced to the high level concept of what Vue does as a framework. What is a single file components and the different API styles, right? We have options API and composition API. We also want to get this upfront so that users know that they are choices. We also added a new, essentially we give you some upfront comparisons and explanations on which one you probably would want to go with. And then we have a new FAQ. We also try to offer different kind of learning paths for users with different preferences. Some users may prefer going with a tutorial. So this is work in progress. Some users may prefer to read a book-like format, the guide, which is very detailed, very kind of slow-paced, covers everything. Some users may just want to look at examples. So the example section is completely reworked. Now we have a full REPL that's working directly in your browser. So every example, you can edit them on the spot. And what's cool is we also give you the toggles to switch between composition API and options API. So every example is written in two API formats, so you can toggle between them to see the difference, understand how they work underneath. And notice that every example uses the exact same template. It's only the script part that changes. For people who are not using single file components, you can even see how the example would work without a build tool. So this is literally the HTML you can copy paste into your browser to get it working without a build tool. So we want to cater to, because Vue is very flexible, we want to cater to different user bases, people coming from different backgrounds with different use cases. So we put a lot of effort into making sure, making sure people can read the documentation with the ideal set of APIs and build environment that they're comfortable with. Right. So these preferences will be persisted. So if once you make the choice, you can hide them, and on subsequent visits, you'll always see the preferred API that you chose. API index also kind of got a revamp. We have now list everything here, so you can filter them. Say I'm looking for watch. So everything relevant to watch will be filtered here, so you can quickly jump to the one that you're interested in. Yeah, so that's the main new stuff in the docs. And some of the sections, for example, the reactivity part, we have different content based on whether you are using Options API or a Composition API. So the whole learning flow, the whole guide has essentially been half rewritten in a way that the flow is exactly the same as before, but now you can actually go through the whole guide while focusing entirely on Composition API. So you can choose to learn Vue through Options API or through Composition API, using the same guide. So because the shared concepts, they share most of the concepts. So the only thing that differs is how some of the API examples, some of the code examples are different, right? So hopefully this would help more users to be able to essentially reduce the sort of starting with Options API, then going to Composition API, and sort of this learning process is kind of different, right? So we want to be new users to be able to just directly go with the API that they prefer. So that is the new documentation. Again, it's very, very work in progress. So if you read it and find something weird, we're still working on it. New default recommendations, some of the tentative stuff. In our new quick start guide, we are moving from Vue CLI to Create Vue, which is just essentially a very thin scaffolding layer on top of Vite. Vue CLI is Webpack based, so we will be moving to Vite for very obvious reasons. We believe it's going to be the better choice for the majority of users, especially new users. So some of the stuff that we want to improve in the new Vite-based setup is mostly testing integration. So that's a part where we would appreciate suggestions or feedback. We're also going to recommend the new VS Code extension Volar over Viter. So Viter has been doing a great job. We really appreciate all the effort that went into it, but with more users going into TypeScript, relying on script setup, right? Volar just provides a better integrated TypeScript experience, and even for users without TypeScript. And Volar also kind of comes along with TypeScript focused tools like Vue TSC that allows you to have the same diagnostics on the command line when you're building your project. So this is going to be a new default recommendation. We're also considering what we should do regarding state management, because Vuex in its current shape is not TypeScript friendly. And especially with Vue 3's Composition API usage, it is actually becoming much easier to define your own reactive stores without the verbosity of Vuex. So, and then Eduardo has also been doing great work on Pinia, which is a much simpler and more flexible way of defining stores with Vue 3, and also already works with DevTools and SSR. So we're trying to essentially have a discussion around how we want to consolidate these and have a better default recommendation when you need state management across components. So the 2 to 3 default version switch, we originally wanted to do it much earlier, but obviously we decided it's better to do it when we have the new docs ready, because it's going to be a whole new set of base recommendations for new users to get into. So when the new docs are ready, we're going to do the switch. Everything will switch to Vue 3 by default, all the repos, npm tags, documentation. So this is going to be a lot of logistics work. So I expect this probably to be happening in November, or definitely before end of the year. Famous last words. 3.3. So currently 3.3, the planned features, we have a bunch of things in the backlog, but the high level idea is 3.3 will be SSR focused. The low-hanging fruit is hydration strategies for async components. This is kind of partially inspired by Astral, right? So in Vue 3, when you define an async component, we can essentially give you a hydration strategy, for example, do not load your code, even you're on the page, do not load your code until you scroll into Vue. Do not load your code if you're on a mobile viewport, right? So these kind of hydration strategies can improve hydration performance. And there are some other micro hydration payload improvements. For example, marking areas as server only, so that it's only using dynamic data during the server rendering or during static site generation, but on the client, it's considered a static node. This is partially already kind of being experimented on in VPress. So we want to kind of move these into a more generic API that you can leverage in more cases, essentially. But this involves a lot of fine details on how to make it safe and low mental overhead. So there's a bunch of work that we need to do in that regard. And then we want to finalize suspense in 3.3. And this will kind of rely on some feedback from the usage in Nuxt and other frameworks. So that is the high level gist of it. I didn't really mention anything for the 2.x line, but just to make a note, 2.7 is still on the roadmap. But given the current state of things, we'll probably have to push it back a little bit, but it's still something that we want to pay attention to. All right, so we're going to some questions.
Yes. So I'm checking both the YouTube channel and the question that were already sent by people over in the last couple of weeks. Anyone on the call would like to ask any questions before we move forward? Good. So as we know, the Vue 3.1 has been released with the migration build has been released a couple of months ago. So even do you know what has been the adoption of it? How many people have actually done the move over from the V2 to V3? So, you know, to actually use it. Have you had any chance to see the move towards the Vue 3 with that?
This is actually a very good question. And to be honest, I haven't been collecting enough data to know exactly how it's going. So any feedback would be really helpful in this regard. Actually, if anyone actually has go through the process and run into issues, but so far we have seen a few issues from people actually, you know, raising issues regarding the compat build in the Vuenext repo. But I don't think there are issues that are very severely blocking. Obviously, we're aware of it, and we will probably continue to improve that, and hopefully we can keep it around, because so far it hasn't really created any sort of maintenance burdens on Vuenext. So I think we did kind of a good job on how to architect it in a way that we don't have to pay extra cost just keeping it around. So but we'll definitely make sure it can still continue to help people.
Okay. Thank you so much. This is another question that actually had from having a chat with people that actually using Vue and they were trying to do the migration to Vue 3. Is that some I spoke with a couple of people that are plugin maintainers, and they were talking about the struggle and a little bit of extra push that they need to do to maintain both Vue 2 and Vue 3. I know that this was touched lightly in the past. Is there anything, any tool or suggestion or anything that is coming next to actually support the people maintaining the two main versions?
So my main recommendation would be to, so obviously we mentioned that 2.7 is going to backport the composition API. So, and today with Vue Demi, you kind of already have that capability. So my suggestion is try to extract the logic as much as possible using the standard set of composition APIs, which will work the same way between Vue 2 and Vue 3, and also already works the same way if you use Vue Demi to sort of ship your library. So I believe most of a very large portion of the logic that you need for kind of external libraries or even components can be extracted into this shareable logic using composition API. So it's that's the suggestion I can give, right? So essentially, if you rely on very specific Vue 2 behavior, think about how maybe it can be refactored into into composition API style code that uses the universal API between Vue2 and Vue3. That would be the safest way to go.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
I also want to say something about that point. I hope that until the end of the year, I can publish something on that topic. But I'm currently exploring a couple of things, like how do I put this? My goal is to provide a couple of packages that are a combination of ESLint rules that help you to like navigate the different APIs, what you can use in Vue 3 but not Vue 2, what you can use in Vue 2 but not Vue 3. You have to like walk this narrow path. Like you can't use a fragment, and you also can't. You always have to have a root node in the transition group, even though you don't need it in Vue 3, but you need it in Vue 2. So all of these things you have to essentially navigate when you want to write code or templates that can be compiled both for Vue 2 and Vue 3. And so if you are writing components, I want to have like the ESLint rule config, which I also already have going. I want to provide a small wrapper around the defined component function that essentially can at runtime like translate the different lifecycle hooks, which is like before created versus before unmounted, and stuff like that. And I also want to have written a small wrapper around the two different versions of the test utils, so you can like mount the same Vue file with Vue 2 and Vue 3. And so all of this is still in motion, and I lack a bit of time to work it all out currently, but I will hopefully have a little bit more time and by the end of the month to work on this. Also work on a guide around this, and the end goal is basically to have templates that you can clone from GitHub with examples where you have basically a Vue 3 package with components that you can build with Vite, of course, and you have a second Vue 2 package which doesn't really contain code. It basically reuses the source of the Vue 3 package but compiles it all for Vue 2 with the appropriate packages that support it. It's still very much a work in progress, but I just want to tell the community that there is work going on, and I also was in discussions with Daniel a bit about this. We want to explore this road further, and we want to provide additional tooling that will make it easier to write components in the future for these scenarios.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I think what you just mentioned, the templates and documentation, that's precisely what have the question that probably would have what was needed to answer those questions. Thank you so much, and I'll keep an eye open for anything to be able to share it with the rest of the community as well. Thank you so much for that. Good. Let me check my questions. There's no question coming from the community yet, or from the chat that I can see. And yeah, I had a couple of questions, but you answered them all on the introduction. So that was nice. As always, you answer them even before I asked them. So that's a good thing. And well, that's really mainly everything I have. And I think the main question will be to see the rest of the community and how things are coming across, how everyone is ready for the Vue 3 migration, and see if there is any, we'll see with the rest of the tool, and rest of the panelists to see if there's anything else there.
Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just checking the internal chat as well. There's too many chats going on, but yeah, that's for me.
Yeah, we do have still, about 40-ish minutes on just kind of open discussion, Q&A conversation. So panelists, feel free to open whatever discussions y'all want to have. And again, for those of you watching on YouTube, feel free to ask questions and we'll go from there. Or Evan, do you have any questions you want to pose or feedback you were hoping to get?
Well, yeah, I guess the most interesting thing for me is the two new RFCs, what people think of it. Just general impressions and whether it's actually a good direction that we should go into, because right? Because previously when we had the first draft of the ref transform, it was very controversial. So eventually we didn't really do it. But this new version, we feel much more comfortable because it's the scope is actually much well defined. And yeah, and the thing I didn't mention is because it's completely valid JavaScript syntax, it works out of the box with any sort of tooling, parser, or TypeScript even. We have full type inference for those macros as well. So yeah, so curious to hear what people think on that. And curious to think and another thing that could be interesting is our new default recommendations, like going from Vue CLI to create Vue, a Vue-based setup, and yeah, just make sure that our contributors are also aware of the high-level movement that we're going to make, and make sure everyone is on board with the plan.
From the initial feedback that we had in the chat, in the YouTube chat, it seems that people really were really happy about both, both FCs that were mentioned. And as a personal user as well of the Vue 3, I can say that I will surely be happy to use the ref transform. I think it really improved the readability of the code. Nice. So explaining the value to new people using it has always been a bit of an extra thing. So I think it will really, really help for people to adopt it. Anyone else in the chat would like to?
I don't know if it's completely relevant from the developer standpoint, but I know that for at least working on Beautify, our representation of dot value has been a way of being able to definitively tell that something is reactive within larger code bases. So I can say from that particular standpoint, it's been very useful to us, being able to quickly identify if a particular property is reactive without having to adjust its naming convention.
Yep, definitely. One interesting thing that we do with these ref transforms is when the variables declared with the ref transform actually has a slightly different type. So it's not a plain number type. So when you hover over it, you'll see that it's actually a ref value. So you will know that it's actually a reactive value.
I was actually going to ask how TypeScript will work with those. So it's not actually a normal number. It will actually have a specific type. That's fantastic.
So in TypeScript, you can actually declare a type with like number and something, right? So we add a special marker on top of it, make it a slightly different type that's actually compatible with numbers, but still when you hover over it, you see that, oh, it's actually a special number.
Yes. I will surely help. I have another question if no one else has, and it's about TypeScript. So I know that it was mentioned to be optional. I know that it's shared across. Just it's nice to use it because it will help if you're creating a package and so on and so forth. But is there any TypeScript mention or covered within the Vue 3 documentation that you guys are updating?
Yes, absolutely. So the whole new TypeScript session probably needs a rework. The story with TypeScript for Vue is kind of a, when we first introduced Vue, the original API options API design had no TypeScript in mind at all. So thanks to the community, they contributed very creative usage of TypeScript to make the type inference work for the options API. But the type is very, very complex. It's kind of hacky, and it breaks down in certain cases. For example, when you have mixins, or it just makes the type explosively more complex internally to maintain as well, right? So one of the main reasons we started looking for new API options in Vue 3 was because of TypeScript, and we explored Class API in the beginning, and notice that Class API just it just can't have a good ergonomics without decorators. But decorators, as we have known, has gone through some very unstable iterations as a proposal. So we felt a bit risky to base a whole new API design on a proposal that may or may not change. And eventually that kind of led us down the composition API route. And what we are happy about composition API is it works extremely well with TypeScript. Everything is designed to work with TS out of the box, and actually it requires very little manual annotations. So that is the primary benefit. Is like when you use TypeScript with composition API, you don't feel that it's in your way most of the time. You would actually feel it's helping you most of the time. For example, say you have a ref, because of TypeScript, you can confidently know whether it should have a value or not, right? And we want to carry this over to the ref transform as well, which is why when we design these sort of new syntax, we want to make sure that it works 100% with TypeScript. Every operation, even with the sugar syntax, needs to be fully type safe. So, and we want to, yeah, so the main design philosophy for Vue with TypeScript is we want to make the experience of using Vue as close as possible when you use Vue with or without TypeScript. And we believe Composition API achieves that pretty well, because it rarely requires manual annotations. So your code will look maybe 80% the same, 80 to 90% the same when you're using Composition API between TypeScript or JavaScript. And I think this kind of creates, we also want to reduce the onboarding burden for users to get started with Vue and TypeScript, right? So the new scaffolding will come with TypeScript option out of the box. Volar, we are recommending Volar now specifically because of the better TypeScript support. So we want to make sure, like, when you go adopt Vue with TypeScript, it's not going to be a huge jump. Like you're paying a lot of onboarding cost in order to get the return. We want to make sure like you can actually have a quite easy time of just say, okay, I want to use TypeScript now. I can do that with Vue, and it has all these added benefits with very little cost that I'm paying. So we want to make that an easier trade-off for our users.
I think that being said, we are still lacking a bit of documentation for certain aspects, especially when it comes to the template, because even when we published the TypeScript support with the Composition API with Vue 3, initially we didn't really have much type support in the template, especially not during compilation, which changed with script setup on the one hand and with Vue TSC on the other hand.
Yeah.
And so I have been in contact with a couple of people who are saying, hey, it's great that I can now use Vue TSC, but all of a sudden I get a lot of type problems that I didn't have before, which is good because it's telling you, hey, you're probably having a problem in your template. But so far we're not providing documentation that is leading users to solutions to these type issues.
Aren't we supporting the TypeScript in the template with the Vue plugin? Yeah. So currently we can just already do something in regards to the.
Yeah, I think a category of problems was kind of unrelated because a certain aspect of the problem was some users were running TS Loader with Vue Loader with Webpack, and TS Loader will actually, so when they use that setup, TS Loader will be type checking the compiled template, which in some cases maybe we didn't do fully type, the type may not just pass the check. So it's kind of a weird situation because technically you don't really want to use the compile template to do type checking. But I guess it's nice for us to still produce type correct code. But what you really want to do is to essentially use Vue TSC to do the type checking, because that works at the more correct level of your code. This isn't really an issue when you use the Vite-based setup, because Vite's build process don't actually do type checking on the compiled code. Instead, we do the separate type checking with VueTSC on your source code, which I think is the more correct way to do it. But obviously, we need to document all of these in the new docs, which is, the TypeScript session is going to be completely rewritten.
So in respect of the TypeScript currently, so even though with the template it might be compiled, using with Volar already supports like a type checking on the template.
Yeah.
And for example, annotating or casting a variable to a specific type is very useful in the template. And before it wasn't supported, but now you should be able to do it. And in terms of the documentation, I'm trying to improve the types of our current component definition to simplify it, because the component contains a lot of generic types there that they are quite confusing, and for us to annotate manually, it's quite complex. So I'm trying to simplify that, and I will probably write a few guidelines for more advanced typings to allow library developers to be able to extract types from a Vue component and do so many things. Also working closely with Volar creator to improve the Volar types, to make sure that the types are working correctly in the Volar template. So yeah, so TypeScript is ongoing. It's ongoing. Yeah.
Amazing. That's, I think it's yeah, it's it's one of those open topic currently, and also I'll share a discussion that I had with someone going and starting a project in V3, and what they said is, we decided to use the option API because we also want to use TypeScript. Sorry, not option, the composition API, because we use TypeScript. So it seems like people are taking the choice because they think, oh, if you want to use TypeScript, it's too hard in the option API, and then moving. So I don't know if this is going to be a possibility going forward.
I wouldn't say it's hard or anything. It's just using composition API with TypeScript feels more natural, because that's how type inference in TypeScript are supposed to work. Right, you have functions when you call the arguments. That's the most purest form of type inference how TypeScript works. Whereas with Options API, we're kind of going all the other way around with a lot of extra hacks in order to give you semi-complete type inference on this. Right, the biggest problem is really like, this is too magical in Options API. There's so many stuff on it. We have to correctly merge everything from all the sources onto a single object. It's a lot of, I would say, type gymnastics that we do in the source code to make that happen. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. It seems like there's a couple of questions from people within the chat. Anyone?
Yeah, I have a question about class API. I've seen it's been lagging behind. It seems pretty complete, at least for what it needs to do right now, but it's still in beta phase. So my question was about, is there something missing? Can it be released as stable? Even if we know composition API is superior in fact of TypeScript inference.
So this is Vue Class API is largely maintained by Katashin. So he hasn't been really active lately, as far as I can tell. So it really depends on how far he wants to push the project. From the team's perspective, because of our bandwidth, we obviously don't want to essentially tell people, hey, there is yet another way for you to write Vue components. So in the official documentation, we'll probably no longer mention Vue class components anymore. Essentially, it's still an option, right? But it's only for people who have really, really strong preference for classes, which we can understand. But again, our default recommendation will no longer include it.
Thanks.
And it seems like there was another question about tests. Jonathan?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was sorry. I mean, I could ask the question. Is this more about
I see the question. Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah. I think it's better if we repeat it, I guess. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Yeah. It's more about the migration from Vue CLI to create Vue. I really enjoy creating the apps with Vite. The only difference is I usually have to go through the same testing setup in order to write like unit tests. So I was just wondering if there's any recommendations that the create Vue scaffolding will.
Yeah, so we tested a bunch of solutions. So the challenge with testing for Vite is that so Jest is one of the most popular unit testing solutions, right? The thing with Jest is it runs completely inside Node.js, and this is already one of the reasons why we have a separate Vue Jest transform, which kind of replicates everything we do in Vue Loader and the Vite plugin. Just because Jest has its own transform system so that it can completely run Node, and up until Jest 27, it doesn't even support async transforms. So that's been a major blocker for us to say having a really smooth integration with Jest for Vite, because Jest just wasn't designed to work with a native dev server like Vite. So what we've found to be working relatively well is Cypress with its component test runner. And Cypress is also rewriting a major part of that stuff with Vue 3. So they're actively working on providing a good experience with a Vue-based setup as well. So currently, there are still minor issues that we are trying to sort out. So there will be collaboration between Vite and Cypress to make sure Cypress is going to be a very solid solution if you need testing, both unit testing and end-to-end testing for a Vite-based project. So, so that will probably be the recommendation. That's what we're probably going to do in Create Vue. Actually, Hao Kung is going to talk about that a little bit in the community updates section. But in general, we think Cypress is probably, it covers both unit testing and end-to-end testing. So that's kind of the recommendation now. There are other possible solutions like, say, running Mocha with Puppeteer. There is a plugin called Vite Mocha Puppeteer. But in the essence, in order to fully leverage what Vite does, because Vite does everything as a native server, right? As a server. So the most correct way to ensure your test code goes through exactly the same transform that Vite does is to run the actual Vite server and load stuff over it. So, which means it's better to start the Vite dev server, then load your tests using Vite. That requires a real browser, so which is why we need something like Cypress or Puppeteer or Playwright. And then we need to sort of plug those test results to report them on the command line. If you don't need to report it on the command line, you can actually already say have a separate page, use the browser build of Mocha, and then write your tests right there. It's actually a very low overhead setup. You essentially, when you're developing, you just open a separate page with Mocha actually running in the browser. And every time you edit something, it also refreshes and reruns, which is actually pretty cool. The only thing lacking is like it doesn't report to the command line. So you can kind of rely on it in CI. So that requires a little bit of extra setup.
Thank you so much for the answer. Any more any more questions? Anything else you want to ask?
I saw another one in the YouTube chat saying, is there any good advice for more easily migrating to Vola? So I think some people are interested in how you get from Vita to Vola.
I don't know if there's any specific migration really required, because you just write standard Vue code and these extensions should give you good support. I'm not sure if there's anything specific that you rely on Vita that would.
If you're still using
work. Sorry?
If you're still using Vue 2 and you want to use Vola, there's an option you can basically add to your TS config, which will enable Vola's type support.
Yeah, Vola actually also works for Vue 2 with some extra setup. So
There's one small thing also.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if there's any migration steps required. To be honest, it's really just disabling Viter, install Volar, and you're kind of good to go.
No,
Depends on
I think
issue.
you have to delete the Vue sim file, like which Twitter recommended. So there's a we declare star.vue modules in a sim file, so we have to delete that file. Otherwise,
Okay.
yeah, that's the only thing that
Uh,
like. So you go ahead, Carl.
Oh, sorry. There's the files that, for example, Quasar and Beautify provide, that's global
Okay.
components.
Mm-hmm.
In Volar, you need to describe as an interface, which can be already provided by the libraries to affect the global components interface.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's basically the major difference that I see from Volar to Vitor.
Okay. Yeah, I think this could be solved probably on the library side as we migrate to more TypeScript-based component definitions, so that we don't have to have a custom format. Instead, we just rely on standard TypeScript inference.
Thank you, Gain. Another question is from Liam. Liam, go ahead.
Yeah, my question was, is there a timeline on the Vue CLI to create Vue migration, or really anything devs need to do to prepare for that?
Not really. So create Vue is not going to be a sort of migration target for Vue CLI. Essentially, we don't recommend people who already run a Vue CLI to switch because it's working well enough. So create Vue is strictly for new projects. It's not going to be a one-on-one replication of Vue CLI. It's just going to be really like, if you're starting a new project, you should use this. But if you have an existing very stable project on Vue CLI, the only reason for you to switch is it will probably be a lot faster. But the thing is, stability for your existing project is probably more important than having a faster dev server. So it's kind of a trade-off whether you are willing to go through this migration to get faster dev server, but it's not a requirement. Like, you don't have to migrate to Vite in order for your projects to continue working. It will always work.
Thank you again for the answer. Good. Just checking again the YouTube for some questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that you can totally try to switch to Vite while still using Vue CLI. That's what we've done at my company, and we use the Vue CLI plugin Vite, and it's been working pretty well for us. So maybe it's worth a try.
Yeah. So so on the topic of this, someone was asking whether we will be bringing the Vue CLI UI over to Vite. But again, I think it's probably better if it's shipped as a separate plugin instead of inside Vite itself. So.
Yep, sure.
Well, you just casually said sure, so people will be counting on it.
Yeah, it would be probably a bit different because I'm still
I'm
planning
joking.
on.
Actually, just do it when you have time, right? This is not something you must do.
I can elaborate a little bit. Like, I'm still planning on migrating everything related to Vue UI towards GUI.js, which is the project based on Tori and not really specific to Vue CLI. So you'll be able to do the same things that you do in Vue UI, but also on other type of projects like Nuxt or Vite or things like that. So be a little bit different than writing a plugin for Vite, but pretty similar.
Sounds good.
Good indeed. Christmas present from people. Seems like we we reached a end of questions, also it seems, for the Vue part. I know that we still got a big chunk of time now going into the individual contributors and individual updates, and I know there will be loads of questions as the ecosystem is waiting for updates and things for all of you guys. So
yeah. But if there's any additional questions, or Evan, you want to solicit any additional feedback, we still have 10 minutes here.
Well, if we don't have further questions, we can have a longer break, I guess.
Yeah, or maybe we can come back. Maybe we just move the schedule up by 10 minutes, because I think the community updates will probably have a little bit more discussion. So maybe we do a break and come back at the 50 mark, and then I'll put up my slides for that, and we'll see you all in about 10 minutes.
All right. Amazing. See you later.
And for those of you watching on the YouTube, I also posted Evan's slides in the chat, so feel free to hop on those. I know there was definitely a bunch of requests asking for those. I think everyone is just starting to come back. So welcome back. And yes, sorry about my slides. It's saying 11:50 p.m., not a.m. All right. Nice joke, Kamal. Yes, now we can view again. So I have a few updates that folks on here said that they wanted to do, but I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anybody. So I have Liam, who's going to talk about Ionic Vue, Kazia, who's going to talk about Vue Internationalization, Fred, who will probably be joining us in just a little bit, talking about Astro. He'll probably go last. We'll have Luke and Paolo talking about Quasar, Philip talking about Vue Storefront, and then I have Daniel and John potentially talking about Next and Beautify. Is that all correct?
And I would like to talk about Create Vue.
Okay, great, awesome. Anybody else? Jonathan,
maybe
you're talking.
Maybe I can do a quick update about Vue DevTools.
Okay, so let's do.
So I might talk about the Vue tool setup for the script setup things, and also the other developer experience stuff I'm working on. If we got time limit,
Okay.
if we got time left.
Okay, great, awesome. Yeah, let's try to keep our updates to like, just a few minutes, no more than 5, hopefully 2 or 3 or so. And then that'll definitely spark the conversation, because the last sort of half hour of the conversation, it's so crazy how fast these things go, right? But the last half hour will just be like open-ended discussions and conversations. And again, panelists feel free to ask each other questions. And then of course, on YouTube, y'all have been pretty active in asking questions. So thank you for doing that, but feel free to post your questions there and we will try to get to all of them. So I think let's just start off with Hao Kung quickly, and you can give us a quick update. You're muted, by the way.
Okay, let me share my screen.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me 1 second. Can you? Okay, perfect. Awesome.
Can everyone see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the new Create Vue project, and I just open sourced it today. You can view on github.com/vue.js/create_vue. And the Create Vue project is the next generation scaffolding tool for Vue projects. You don't have to switch your Vue CLI projects to Create Vue yet, because it's a completely new start from scratch project that is only suitable for new projects. And we make this tool very, very lean. I'll show you in a second. So the Create Vue major version number is in sync with the Vue major. So now that Vue 3 is under the next tag, you need to use the Create Vue at next version, and you get the prompt now, and you don't see the progress bar on downloading the package because it's very, very small. That's I bundled every dependency into the single JS file that you only need to download about 50 kilobytes of content to start. And every option is opt-in, unlike Vue CLI that you will have Babel and ESLint by default. So now I'll create a very simple project that I opt out every choice. So now you can see the Vue project, and let's open VS Code to see its structure. Uh-oh. Somehow VS Code is not working. Okay, so let's just use the tree tool to see its content, and we only have the necessary files to start a new project. That is the Vue config.js and the source folder and the entry index.html. Nothing more. One thing is that we have the new extension folder. The VS Code extension file that we start to recommend Vola for Vue 3 development. So it's included by default. If you are VS Code, you haven't installed Vola in your VS Code, it will prompt you. And we only have 3 dependencies for the minimum setup. Now that Vue compiler SFC is bundled into the Vue package. So the dependency installation is super fast.
When you're not streaming, it sure is faster than this.
Yeah, it's only around 50 packages. So, and we can see the project in 0.5 seconds. And this is the new landing page of the project. We get every useful link that you might need during the development in the landing page. So you can check the documentation, the recommended tooling, and the ecosystem packages and the community. And you can support Vue by becoming a sponsor. That's for the minimum setup. And we can check the most advanced setup that includes every option. That is TypeScript, JSX, Vue Router, Vuex, and Cypress. Let me try again with VS Code. Uh-oh, no.
Maybe quit your existing VS Code window and try it again. Like,
no,
it seems you have multiple VS Code running.
Yeah, it's working now. So in the TypeScript setup, we have an additional tsconfig.json and the inc.js that includes the type definition for Vite specific types and the Vue shim in one file. And most of the Cypress thing is under the Cypress folder. So this is for E2E testing, and we have a unit testing with Cypress component tests too. And in this new setup, instead of putting unit testing files under a separate test/unit folder, we think that it is better to have the test specs alongside the component themselves. the tests for hello world.view component is inside the underscore tests file. And it works exactly, the syntax is exactly the same as the E2E testing files that we wrote before. The VS Code is showing type errors because we haven't installed the dependencies. I think it also should be very fast because there are only a few addition dependencies.
Yeah. It looks slower than it should be because Hao Kung is located in China, so the resolving call to the NPM registry is much slower because I typically see this several hundred thing finishing under a second or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's mostly slow in the resolving step.
And note that we also include an alias setup in the vite.config.ts because I see many people asking how to set up aliases in Vite. So I just include this one. We used to have this in previous versions of Vue CLI. And that's the project. And it's also available instantly.
We're running out of time because we're at 10 minutes now.
Let me just show the last feature, that is Cypress component testing. We have every script that you might need for tests, preview, build. Cypress component testing is super fast, but the startup time is maybe somehow slow. And in Cypress component testing, you can have the component rendered and mounted into the viewport. So it's a much better experience than just, and the environment is exactly the same as the E2E testing. So there should be less gotchas when you run the unit tests. And that's it for the create Vue package.
Awesome.
All right.
Amazing work. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in chat and we will get to kind of the open discussion after this. Next up, Liam.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, so there's been a lot of really cool stuff happening in Ionic world for Vue developers. So first, I'll talk about Ionic Vue, which is our UI toolkit for building cross-platform apps with Vue 3. So we're working on Ionic Vue version 6, which has new components like accordion, breadcrumbs, and a redesigned date component. Additionally, it's been updated with the latest iOS 15 designs, and we added support for Vite a few weeks ago, which I'm very, very happy to see. That was a really popular feature request from our Vue community members. So Ionic Vue version 6 actually just entered release candidate this morning, which just happened to line up with today, which is really, really fun. So we're really excited to see that get out the door. So check out ionicframework.com for that. Next, we have Capacitor, which is our cross-platform native runtime for web apps. So think of it more as like a spiritual successor to Cordova with performance and developer experience improvements and full progressive web app support. The Capacitor team just released Cap 3, Capacitor 3, earlier this year with bundle size improvements, an updated permissions API, and a new run command for the CLI. This lets you run your app on a device without having to open Xcode or Android Studio. So if you're a web developer looking to make mobile or desktop apps with Ionic Vue, Vuetify, Quasar, or anything else, be sure to check out capacitorjs.com. And finally, we have some great improvements coming to Stencil, our component compiler. So Stencil lets you create and ship reusable, scalable components that run in every browser and work with any JS framework, including Vue. So the Stencil team has been hard at work on Vue support with tree shaking improvements and improved support for Vite and Vue 3. You can find out more at stenciljs.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very exciting. And again, feel free to post questions in chat for Liam. Okay, next up we have Kazia for Vue Internationalization.
Okay, so I'd like to give 2 updates on Vue 19 related quickly. Firstly, about Vue 19, Vue 19 latest stable version is version 9.1.9. So of course, this version is supported Vue 3. Currently, I'm working on Vue 19 version 9.2. That's currently version is better. In this version, we can use just some new feature, and we can get some improvement. One of the most important features is Typescript supporting. This feature will be improved your internationalization developer experience considerably. Especially resource keys completion in Visual Studio Code. Second update information about Vue 19 migration. Recently, I've released the Vue 19 bridge. Vue 19 bridge supports the migration to version 9 from version 8. Vue 19 bridge is backported the Vue 19 composition API from version 9. You can use it so you can migrate the step-by-step migration to Vue 3 applications by using backported Vue 19 composition API in your Vue 2 applications. I appreciate that you are having me give up opportunity my updates for community. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, going down the list. Next up, we have Fred for Astro.
Hey.
Hi.
Hopefully y'all can hear me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have some stuff to talk about with Astro. So Evan mentioned there was some cool Vue 3.3 stuff coming down the pipe inspired by Astro. That's awesome to hear. For those of you who don't know, Astro is a way to do some really interesting stuff with partial hydration. So partial hydration is this idea of, instead of treating your entire website as a JavaScript application where you just kind of send the code down, you render it on the server, and you're building an application where the components are all nested, your entire page is essentially owned by one root in one application. Going back to a more traditional model where your page is a page and it's HTML by default, but then you can inject these little islands of interactivity across your site. So the majority of your content on like an e-commerce site or a blog is static, it's words, it's text. It's able to send that just as the static HTML, no JavaScript needed to go down the pipe to power that. And then that like buy button, which triggers some confetti, or the header, an image carousel, those are all interactive. So they need that JavaScript. So you're able to, at a much more fine-grained level, control how the page hydrates and how individual components hydrate. So you have these islands of interactivity, what we call island architecture, where the result is that instead of having to send down a lot of JavaScript, you actually just get to send down the bare minimum needed to render your site, to hydrate the components as needed. You can control different parts of the site. So one thing might be very important. You can load it with the rest of your site content on load. Something else, maybe it's to the bottom of the page, it's like a really expensive, heavy thing. You can actually put a visible detector on there. So it'll basically only hydrate as the user scrolls down to it. So if the user never sees it, they never pay the cost, they get a faster site. So this is really fun. It's really fun to work on because it's just a very different take on web development. We just actually yesterday at the Jamstack won the Ecosystem Innovation Award. We're a fairly new project, but really just making a big impact in terms of, you know, not just doing another one of those JavaScript apps, not trying to do another take on Next or Nux, but actually a different way to build your site and architect that site. So we're really excited about it. We think it's a great story for performance, especially if you're building anything with mostly static content. You can learn more at astro.build, astro.build on Twitter, where we post a lot of cool stuff. There's a great REPL you can play with, a doc site, all that cool stuff. Please check it out. And oh, sorry, the most important part, it works with Vue. So the nice thing about treating every island as component, we get to work with every framework. So Vue, React, Svelte, whatever you want to bring to the table, you can actually mix and match. Up to you whether that's a good idea or a bad idea. But obviously first-class Vue support is very important to us. It comes out of the box. We love the Vue community. And yeah, excited to talk more about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, next up we have Luke and Paolo, and I understand you also have slides. Slides are looking good. Although we can't hear you if you're talking. Still can't hear you if you're talking.
It should be done.
Oh, there it is.
So, oh, okay. There we go.
I couldn't find the unmute button once I'd started the slides. All right. Sorry about that, everyone.
No worries.
All right. I'm going to dive right into this. There's a few bits and pieces, so I'll just sort of smash through all of this. Yeah, so Quasar's had a rebranding. So we've gone from this old logo into a new, more modern logo. And with that, we're going to be working on the landing page for Quasar. We're rebuilding that to make it clearer what Quasar does and what Quasar is. And we're also doing rebranding for basically the framework of the entire site, like documentation. And that's based on feedback that we got from a survey a few months ago, just about how people use the docs, what stuff they're using the most. And so we're kind of revamping the docs based on that feedback. And to the framework itself, we have Vue 3 support, and we have ever since Q1, and we're even out of beta now. So we are on Vue 3 stable. We have been for a little while, which is really exciting. Razvan did a ridiculous amount of work to get to make that happen sooner rather than later. So that means we get to use the cool stuff like script setup, ref sugar, all of that's going to work out of the box with Quasar. Vola support is getting really nice now, especially over the past couple of days. So you're going to get auto completion for things like props, events, components, and even slots coming soon, which I didn't even know was possible. So I'm ridiculously excited about that. And these two blue ones here, events and slots, that's stuff that we actually couldn't do in the past, which is now possible using Vola. So really cool stuff. I wanted to mention Vite support. This is in the works, so it's not currently available in Quasar, except for some prototypes that we've done and also some community efforts as well. Moving on to app extensions. For those of you that don't know, app extensions are basically ways of extending Quasar in cool and exciting ways. So you can like, combine the components, create your own boot files, stuff like that, just so the community can easily sort of plug into Quasar. And we've got a lot of core app extensions that are created by Jeff. And one of the most notable ones is Qcalendar. And this app extension is absolutely mind-blowing. So definitely check it out at qcalendar.netlify.app. His documentation there is for the alpha version, which is going to be out soon. And that will, of course, support Quasar version 2. And also other app extensions like Q Media Player and Q Markdown are stable, and the others are slowly becoming stable for Quasar version 2 as well. I wanted to quickly mention SSG with Quasar because, it's such a hot topic at the moment. This is actually possible right now with an app extension using Quasar version 2. So Freddie's created this app extension, worked great for Quasar version 1, and it's recently now supporting Quasar version 2, which is freaking amazing to be able to do SSG with Quasar. Testing, so this is mostly Carlo's effort here. And the most notable ones is support for Jest and Cypress. Testing is currently in alpha. The one thing I'm particularly excited about is it looks like Cypress component testing integration is going to be available when testing is released, which is awesome because we get super fast tests and all the benefits of that. All right, last but not least, education. If you go to quasarcast.com, at the top of the page there, we have a getting started guide for Quasar, and that is for Quasar version 2. So if you want to learn Quasar version 2, if you haven't heard of it, want to try out the framework, definitely check out quasarcast.com, scroll to the top of the page, and you can take a look at the getting started guide there. Everything on that site is currently free. There is going to be paid content down the line, but that's probably not going to be for like another few months. So definitely jump onto quasarcast.com if you like learning through videos. Quasarnews.com is a news site that that was released about a month ago. Pretty bare at the moment. We've only just started working on it, but it's also going to have a podcast which is coming soon. And in fact, these slides that I'm showing you right now will probably make a good podcast episode. So we'll be ready for the first podcast in the coming weeks. And yeah, that's just going to be a place, obviously, where we can update people with news. You'll be able to sign up to an email newsletter, cool stuff like that. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that I'm actually currently working on a 72 plus component series. And this basically runs you through all 72 of Quasar's components. It's going to be a paid course, and all proceeds will go directly to help with the development of Quasar. So if you want to jump on the mailing list for when that's released, go to quasarcomponents.com. And by the end of the year, all of those videos are actually going to be available for free to the Quasar community, which basically means every single Quasar component you can, you're going to have a video that you can look at to sort of teach you how to use that component if you prefer to learn through videos rather than through reading the docs. So yeah, that's my update for the Quasar world.
Awesome.
Just jumping in for a small correction, the Volar support will be in the next release of Quasar, so in the, I think 2 dot something, since we said it was already ready. Is not, it will be in the next release.
Awesome. And next up, we will move on to Philip, who will talk about Vue Storefront.
Yeah, hey. Let me quickly share my screen because I prepared 2 slides when you were all talking.
Yes. quick slides.
Yeah.
On the fly. But yeah, this is like.
Okay, do you see a Superman?
Yes, we do.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so maybe let me first introduce what Vue Storefront is, because I'm aware that maybe some people who don't know. So basically our mission is simple. We are creating high quality tools, helping developers to build amazing e-commerce storefronts that will hopefully make everyone happy. And you may know or not that less than a year ago, I think exactly 9 months ago, we transformed from a small open source project to pretty well-funded startup. And there's almost 50 of us right now. So it allowed us to go, much further beyond just delivering the framework and tackle this problem from a much broader angle. So right now, what we are trying to focus on and what we are building into Storefront is basically around 3 things. One of them is data orchestration. So in the e-commerce space, it's very common that you're using tons of different softwares like e-commerce, CMS, OMS, much more, and it's hard to orchestrate them. So we are creating a gateway that is allowing to do this. It is already present. I mean, right now we can use it. It's based on Express.js, but we are also building a version on Apollo GraphQL. The second thing is you have orchestrated your data, but then you have to build the front end itself. So we are delivering tools that are actually meant to help that. So we have Vue Storefront 2, which is basically a framework to tackle this e-commerce logic, Storefront UI, which is a design system and UI library. We also have individual libraries for front-end caching and all the different things. So any kind of challenge that you would face while building e-commerce front-ends, we hope to have a tool for that. And a new thing that we are working on right now is called Vue Storefront Platform. And this could be treated as a hosting platform for Vue Storefront, but we want to go far beyond that. We want to release the first version, I think, in a few months. And we will have beta access for everyone. But we want to go beyond that, because on top of this hosting platform, we want to add a very advanced analytics that are actually telling you exactly where you're losing revenue. And for the business side of things, this is very useful information. And on a very lower level, so apart from what we are building in terms of products, we're trying to focus on having the biggest possible presence on the market. So we are trying to deliver our tools to all possible e-commerce platforms. And right now we have integrations with commerce tools, Shopware, Shopify, Spryker. And this month we actually announced PrestaShop, Spree. There's also NobCommerce, there's SAP that is being built. And from quite some time, we already have a Magento integration. If you don't see your e-commerce platform on this list, don't worry, we'll be adding them from time to time. And also you can contribute, you can just ping us and tell that you want to work on some specific integration, and we will support you as much as we can with that. That's it from our side. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And in the chat, people are asking you to post, or actually, sorry, not you, Luke, to post the last two links. Sorry, going back one. So Luke, if you send them to me in chat, then I can post them. Unfortunately, YouTube has these restrictions on what links can be posted. But yes, thank you so much, Philippe. Okay, next up, Daniel from Next. And again, remember everyone, if you have questions, I see a bunch of people posting things, so keep posting questions and we'll get to them in just a little bit.
So we've been working hard at Next. So it's been great fun. In fact, at the moment, a few of the core team are actually together, and it's been really great to be able to work. The reason we're working so hard is because the Next public beta release is next week, October 12th. It's in my diary and circled several times in red. I don't know if that's true for anyone else. And basically, this is the opportunity when we'll be opening up visibility into what we've been working on for quite a while, into the source code. It's not by any means, of course, a promise that Next 3 is stable, but it's a chance for the ecosystem to start working with us, which is desperately something that we absolutely are looking forward to. So I think one of the things that makes Next so great is the fact that people have developed so many amazing integrations and plugins. They have so many different use cases for Next. And so it's a chance basically to kick the tires, see what's working and what's working well and what we need to improve. So it's the start of a journey, and it's happening on the 12th. Some of the cool things we've been working at include the creation of a CLI. So you can Nuxy init a new project in a really fast way. We've transitioned the entire Next ecosystem to ESM. So everything, including all of the internal modules, are fully MJS. That's been lots of fun, and we've been finding lots of edge cases in lots of modules and things like that, and hopefully solving them. And there's lots of opportunities to do other things. Just earlier today, I merged a PR to add WebAssembly support to Next. So lots of exciting things happening.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Daniel. Also, oh my gosh, commitments. So excited for you. I always get nervous about committing. Okay, next up, John from Pewdiepie.
I should have raised my desk beforehand. Hello. So got a couple updates with Pewdiepie 3 and some information about where the team is at, what we've been working on, and some things that are coming up. Recently, we put a lot of time into our form components. We have a completely brand new validation system that adds some new features and functionality, such as asynchronous calls and default rules.
Oh, sorry, you just the voice cut out a little bit. Sorry.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
back now.
So yeah, we've been working on a lot of updates to the form system, including more in tune form control, inline, being able to turn on or off all inputs. We have new inline validation components. So now you can create any, you can validate any set of components or anything that you want to by wrapping the component in this validation wrapper. Anyways, so we also have some additional components that we've been getting into the system for selection controls, checkboxes, and radio inputs, kind of making sure that everything works very well together, and in the process of implementing some of the final touches for components like autocomplete and select with new filtering functionality that we have. So if you've worked with unified data tables, we have the ability to perform different types of filtering methods on different columns of data. We're bringing that out into its own composable, as a reusable composable, and has definitely expanded the capabilities and will make things like autocomplete a lot more usable for individuals, being able to control individual highlighting for matches found, being able to filter on multiple columns, and more components than just data table. And we have a lot of new components that are coming in the next in the alpha. We have some data table information coming in. We have a new component for nested functionality. If you've ever worked with tree view, we're kind of taking all of the functionality from tree view and we're homogenizing it so that it could be reused for things like list, making a lot of it. We've been really crunching a lot of the APIs together and creating even more baseline functionality components so that, you know, if anything that you're using within the framework is something that we've built on a lower functionality piece, so that you could rewrite it if you want to. You could use our inputs or selection controls, and in this case, now in the future, nested inputs, nested content like a tree view, without needing to use our version if you don't want to. We also have a lot of updates to the tooling around Beautify 3. Kale has been working really hard on, we have a new Vite plugin. And for anyone who has worked with customizing variables on Beautify in version 2, you know that we transpile directly from node modules, which allows us to really tree shake efficiently. However, it can be a lot slower in cases. And with the new Vite plugin, we have a couple different processes for how we, in combination with the Beautify loader, we have some new processes that are going to be available to users to where you can designate that you want to be able to overwrite all of the variables or only overwrite some, so that, for example, if you're using a component in your library that is not having Sass variables modified, we don't really need to recompile the Sass for it. So now there'll be an auto-generated CSS file, which makes this, making any modifications in version 3 with Sass or on the Beautify object instant with Vite, which is pretty awesome. We also updated our Sass interfacing from imports to modules, so that it is a little bit more intuitive to define and overwrite some of our built-in variables. And we're also giving a lot of options for people to be able to modify aspects of the framework that had previously been closed off, the ability to turn off all of our utility classes, or the ability to turn off of the CSS reset, color pack, etc. We have a lot of options that we're bringing for users to be able to, continue to make changes to what kind of this baseline white label set of components that we just put a default interface with, but you can change very easily. Some of these, or all of these new features in regards to the Beautify loader with the Vite plugin does support the modular Sass variable declaration, supports the different compile methods for how you can combine overriding variables for all or just some. It does work with Vue CLI. However, we have not put as much attention towards that aspect as we have Vite. I think Evan pointed out earlier that Vite is just overall a much more solves more scenarios solution. So we've definitely put a lot more focus on that. It's also just a much greater development experience working with Beautify, especially if you've had work with a large site where you have a lot of customizations. We also have some the new version 3 docs coming up. And by new, I mean right now the version that is currently live that's serving as the base for all of our next development is a hacked version 2, version 3 culmination, just so that we could get things to work and get it up and going. However, we have finally added the last few components that we needed in order to provide a somewhat decent documentation experience with the new version. So we will have a new Vite SSR documentation version up running completely on version 3 very soon. And yeah, the last bit that we have kind of is already in the works, and some of it's released, is Beautify has presets to where you can easily install and get an application set up with some recommended default options that that the team has perfected over the years. And one of the things that you can do with this with the Beautify installer now is you can directly install the alpha using the alpha for Vite or the alpha for Vue CLI. And we have a couple different ways that you can do that now, and the tooling that's coming out for those presets are, because right now we have the concept of smaller subsets of predefined functionality for version 2, but it all hasn't been converted for version 3 yet. Right now, we only have the single templates for either a Vite or a Vue CLI installation, but we are bringing over all of these pre-configured systems to make sure that with version 3, you'll be able to quickly get a completely scaffolded project up and going very quickly. And yeah, so that's kind of what the team has been working on. We have lots more exciting things that we're working on in addition to this year, and looking forward to putting out some additional information. Thank you for the time.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, next up we have Jonathan.
All right,
Yeah,
can you
there
hear
we
me?
go. Yes. Mhm.
All right, I'm just gonna, I also whipped up a couple of slides in the last couple of minutes. I'm just gonna share my screen. Okay. There we go. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'll go back to the first slide. Yeah, so with Chakra UI, we've been working a lot, I think, under the radar. Haven't had very much time to post a lot online, but this is what we've been doing. So we've been working hard on the V1 release so far, and some alpha releases already out. Not all the components already, but people are already using it in production. And this is an example enterprise application that heavily relies on the theme API. And this is kind of the syntax that it allows you to extend the theme with. And we can now define the component styles. One of the features we've been getting from users is they like to be able to define their component design in another document and not necessarily do it in a new component and then re-import that component. And so with the new extend theme API, you can be able to do that within your theme object. You can also define custom variants as well, and these variants can then be responsive to your components. We also were able to, due to some help from the community, some people have actually managed to backport the theme API for V1 partially into V0.x. So if you're using 0.10.2 onwards, 0.10 and onwards, you can actually use this feature directly inside of your components. We also added a mode utility that simplifies how users can, you can toggle between values depending on the color mode. So instead of importing the component, this was actually a tweet done by one of our team members. Instead of having to import and inject the current color mode into your component context, you can directly access it using the global property that we provide using called mode. And it also works not only within the Vue context, it also works in your regular JavaScript file. So if you ever need to access this value, in case you change your color mode in another JavaScript file, you can access that and it will work just fine. We also are working on, we started doing some early development on version 2, and this has actually kind of been, I feel guilty because it's distracted me a lot. The idea is we're trying to extract the logic between the logic that we are duplicating between Vue and React. For those of us that know, Chakra UI exists both for Vue and React. So we decided to use state machines and then write Vue composition API hooks to consume the state machine and then pass the state onto the components. So this allows us to split the UI components into logic and just UI. So we have two types of kind of machines. We have UI machines for state and logic, and we have other machines for just design. And I think this is interesting. So community members that are interested in helping us crank this out, this will be good. So if someone wants to work on like Chakra UI Svelte, it'll be a lot easier. You don't have to rewrite all the code. And then we're also working on a Chakra UI extract, which will allow us to walk through your single file components and extract all these styles out. And so you can have a zero runtime styling API for those that are interested in this. It will also work in React as well. And this is also very early development, so the repository is not public, but I think it's interesting I thought it would be something to share. So in case there's anybody interested in contributing towards this, we're active on our Discord, so please feel free to reach out to us. And that's it on updates from Chakra UI.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Anthony giving updates.
So yeah, so like Yes. So like seems like everybody is announcing like cool new things. So I also heard that a lot of people are still stuck on Vue 2. So like due to like IE support or some like code-based migration thing. So so I'd like to mention a few tools to like help you back to like enhance your Vue 2 app. So can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
So like the first well-known one is like the Vue composition API, which we backport the our composition API back to from Vue 3 back to Vue 2. So like you can use the composabilities like original, like it's really hard in some of them are really hard in options API. I'm one of the maintainer of these plugins, and then I think this plugin is quite stable now, and I think many of them are using it. So the other one is that, sorry, okay. So the other one is that I originally made for like Vue 2 script setup. So like script setup is kind of a new cool things, a new sexy things like we can have in the Vue single file components to like make our code more simpler. So like while this is original like Vue 3 only, like for now, like we can bring back to like Vue 2 app. So like what's mentioning is that this plugin is like called Unplugging, which is powered by which is made by like Nux Lab. So you can see that in our install guidance, like you can use like almost any tools like you are using, like for example like Webpack or Vue CLI, like also Nux. So even with Vola, like you can have like even Nux 3 like TypeScript support for Vue for the script for the script setup syntax, and also like Ref Sugar. So this use the exact package from the Nux from Vue 3. That Vue 3 exported the ref transform logic under the @Vue/ref transform package. So like we are using them, so like you can actually get the exactly same behavior at the Vue 3. So while this is experimentals, when this syntax is out of experimentals, we are also aligning with the Vue 3 changes. So then we can like push Unplugging ecosystem even further. So like we have the file system components auto importing things with these plugins, and also Unplugging auto import, like for you can even get rid of the RIF and the computer import, like it will be accessible globally, and then like you can use them as you want. So to sum up, like we can combining all of this together, and then like this is an example like for Nux 2, which is running on running on Vue 2. So as you can see, like I can open up a small demo here. So you can get the first class lang TS file for script setup, and like you can get all the TypeScript support. And like for example, like I can make a double called computed. You can see that we have all the compilation for these APIs, and then like for example here. So if we change the ref to screen, like you can see we got the type error, like you cannot multiply a string on that. So we also get a Vite on top of Nux 2. So like you can have the instance hot module reload on Nux. So this is basically it. And also like in the upcoming Nux 3 release, we are also like release Nux Bridge that bring back the Nux 3 functionalities or like cool new things to Nux 2. So like you can start using Nux 3 features now, like, and then like migrate to Nux 3 later. So and that's all for me for this sharing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm always so impressed. All the different JavaScript communities are formed differently and they have like different ways of doing things, but I'm always so impressed with like how much is going into the Vue community and how many people have like adjacent projects. You don't see that as intensely in some of the other communities. So that's really great. And I love that. So going into just kind of the next 20 minutes of just having conversations. I know there have been some questions and everything like that. And Simone will take it over.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tracy. It is great to do these events because we can hear so much progress and how much work goes behind each release and everything else. And Anthony, it's amazing how much you can provide to the community. So I'm a Vue user, and every now and then I can see your new things. It's great, fantastic work from your side, and fantastic work from everyone. So everyone is great.
Yeah.
Again, there are some questions in the YouTube chat, also question internally if you guys want to ask. There was one question in the YouTube chat was about someone tried to use Astro. Lindsay tried to use Astro with script setup, and they went into some issues. So Fred, do you know if there's a fix coming through, or are you aware, or how is that going?
Yeah, I think I'm aware of that issue, and I think there might even be a PR for that. Yeah, I actually haven't gotten into it myself, so I can't really speak too much detail, but first-class Vue support is very important. So anything like that is treated as a pretty high priority bug. We also internally just moved from Snowpack to Vue, which is Evan's project. So there's some great Vue support out of that, where Snowpack's Vue support was always a little, can't compete with Evan building, so much great Vue stuff. So we definitely want to invest in our Vue support, and moving to Vue is definitely one step towards that direction as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the answer. Also, some of you covered it during your discussion, your introduction. Some of you did not. So which one are all projects now supporting Vue 3? So I didn't manage to get it if Vue Storefront actually support Vue 3. I know that with Beautify is coming. So, if anyone can just chip in and say if support is coming, if there is a timeline, because I know that that's what's stopping some people to upgrading or actually taking Vue 3 as new project. So.
Yeah, I can maybe speak about Vue Storefront, and basically we are based on Next. So as soon as Next we release a public beta, we'll try to align with that. We already have written everything in the composition API, so the transition should be simple. Of course, like I don't know how many breaking changes are in Next, but like the Vue Storefront itself, we're doing as much as we can to have a very smooth transition for all our customers and people from the community.
Thank you so much, Philip. Anyone else? You say this as soon as it gets released. We know precisely that it's the 12th of October. Midnight or 1 o'clock? What?
That would be a dangerous thing to promise.
I'm joking. Sorry. You don't have to say the time zone, and that's it. Then you're safe. Let me see. I wanted to ask a question on Vite, but I can see that even is gone. So let me see. Oh yeah, Quasar Shirts was mentioned. What about all the beautiful shirts? Why they were mentioned in the chat? What did you hide to us?
Yeah, this is something we're currently working on with Nicolo, who's the Quasar's designer. Yeah, so we've already done a few test shirts. We just want to make sure that we've got something that's super comfortable. Which takes time because then you've got to wait 2 weeks for it to ship and all that kind of stuff. So we are still working on that. And there will be Quasar shirts. I'm predicting probably within the next couple of months. But as we seem to have established, setting hard dates can be dangerous.
Amazing. I'll send you my size, okay, Luke? So we can get that sorted. Good. Is when I may say the chakra again, I may say the name wrong. I do apologize. But in the introduction was mentioned that the components were split between the logical part and the designs part. So how did that decision come across, and what can you say about that? Because it's something very interesting on actually doing it. And how did you find it?
Yeah, I think the decision for this came about because the Chakra UI works beyond just Vue.js. It works also for React, and we found that for each version, we had a lot of code duplication. For example, like, the effects and maybe some of the state, and I would have to redo that in Vue.js as well. And if someone were to come along and they wanted to build like another version of that in Svelte, that would result in a lot of duplication of time. And so we decided for V2, this might be the biggest change, just extracting them. So using state machines, because we found these to be a common paradigm that would allow us to support this without doing too much gymnastics. And then within the framework context, we would then use composables. And this is where React and Vue, I think, are very helpful. So of course, the state machines will need to have some reactivity. So for that, we thought about using Vue reactivity, but we found that its bundle size was a little bit larger than we used Vault.io as the alternative. And but so far everything is okay. We wrote a smaller state machine compared to XState for this, and yeah, so far that was the main reason. I think I probably over answered the question.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. That was a great explanation. I think Maya, you have a question for us?
No, actually, when I heard that Jonathan said about using XState or state machine in Chakra, I was very, very excited because I'm a fan of XState. So wanted to ask him about how do you find like writing about state machine? How does it change the way he developed the component library compared to before? And I understand that he's not using XState, right? Just build your own XState machine based on the concept. Sorry, build your own state machine based on the concept of XState. Isn't it right?
Okay. Yeah. I think I'll answer probably your last question first. The public API for the state machine is actually the same as XState. So you could take your state machine and put it into the XState visualizer, and it would still show the maps for it. I wish I had slides to show. But it does work the same way. The public API is the same. As far as writing components is concerned, we are heavily relying on when we define the state or the context for the state machine, we then destructure it for the components that are supposed to consume that state. And so on the browser side, when you import the component, we will then use the mounted hook to then initiate the state machine, depending on the type of component that it is, especially for accessibility heavy components. And we found that it's been a bit more robust. So now we can write a single suite of tests for the state machine, and we're sure that it works whether you import it in Vue and React. So this is I think how it's changed. We haven't yet used it in production yet, but I think the React team is planning to release a range slider component in V1. So this one relies on the UI machine. So I think you could also look at that.
Okay, cool. That's very cool. Thanks.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I think there's a person that everyone will want to hear about is the Vue Devtools. We haven't had any update yet about that. So have you got anything to add or tell us about that?
Yeah, maybe I can. Do you hear me well?
Yes,
so maybe I can share my screen. Yeah, switch to my computer. So. Okay. Is it good?
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Great. So I recently shipped a few updates to the Vue Devtools. I don't know if everybody knows, but there is a new website dedicated to the Devtools you can go to. And there's a guide and plugin development. Oh, maybe it's broken. Okay. Yeah, something going on here. So there's a part of the documentation website dedicated to plugins, which is a very exciting new feature in the DevTools. I think that's the most exciting feature for me, because it basically means that any third-party plugin in the Vue ecosystem can hook into the Devtools and add new debugging informations and basically improve your debugging experience. And I think I'm not sure that's already been done before, but you can go to documentation here, and there's the whole guide on about how to use the DevTool API. And for example, here we can see in the Pinia demo from Eduardo that Pinia is actually adding new features directly into the Vue DevTools using the DevTools plugin API. So we can see here in this component that Pinia is putting some special states in addition to the default ones here. We can also see that we have an entirely new inspector provided by Pinia. So we can browse the Pinia state here.
Wow.
And recently I made some updates to DevTools. So here's the latest version running on the development shell, a development application here. So we can see that now the DevTools is gonna show a little notification if your Vue version is out of date. And the most exciting thing about those recent updates are that plugins got even more powerful because we can now control the permissions of the plugins. So for example, if you don't want to see the events on the timeline from this particular plugin, or the additional component data, you can toggle this off, and the plugin can even add settings, custom settings, to further improve and customize the debugging experience. So here we can see that this this plugin is providing us with a few settings here. So it's basically you say, oh, I can I want to display a toggle or a choice or text input, and it's gonna display here in the Chrome DevTool panel here.
Amazing.
So that's it for my quick update.
That's fantastic. Great updates. And I'm loving, I love the new changes and new update in the last version. So well done on that. I think next up is Ben. Ben, you got something to tell us?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So I imagine, with all of us being in the pandemic, we're all getting used to these remote events, but also as a result, one of the benefits of this is that there are a lot of speaking opportunities when it comes to remote events, especially when it comes to meetups and that kind of thing. So if you've always ever been interested as far as organizing sort of communities, around Vue or whatnot, or want to get started with public speaking, this is actually a really great time to just sort of gain that experience in the meantime. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and happy to help facilitate that, because we always love seeing new speakers and hearing about all the amazing work that everyone is doing. So thanks, Simone.
Thanks so much. Thank you for that. I'm really hoping can come to Vue London. So remote event on our back. Come on, guys. Back to face to face. I think a little updates that I personally am interested, I know other people are, is probably a couple of words on Vite. If you can, if there is anything you can say on, what has been released recently, anything else coming up.
Yeah, so we just recently released Vue 2.6. Honestly, I've been mostly focusing on the Vue docs side, but the Vue team is doing great work. I did add one performance improvement in 2.6. So 2.6 now defaults to ES build for minification. We actually had to essentially raise the feature request to ES build so that it can properly do tree shaking when minifying a single file. So that was resolved in the latest version of ES build. I actually had to learn Go to make a PR but I mean, the PR didn't get merged, but anyway, we got what we want. So now Vite can use ES build for minification by default, so which is 20 times faster. So default builds will be a lot faster. And then we also shipped another performance improvement that essentially when you hit the first request to the server, we will start to eagerly pre-transform every direct import of that module so that we can start transforming them before the browser even send the HTTP request, right? Because if we only transform on demand, then we have to wait for the back and forth between the browser and the server for everything to be transfiled. But we can actually eagerly sort of like a pre-warming, right? Anthony has actually worked on something like that as a plugin, but now we have it built in. So all users will enjoy it out of the box. So this mostly helps when you have a lot of modules that need to be loaded in parallel on the first load, right? So on subsequent load, it's mostly the same. And then for further updates, so once I finish the docs, I think one thing we want to finalize in Vite is to rework the SSR dependency handling issue. So there are a bunch of dependency that have problems when you try to use an SSR. So we want to resolve that properly. Probably gonna require some reworking of how we handle the dependencies overall. But that is probably the major thing left for us to tackle. Some other smaller things like we probably want, another thing we want to fix is when you have, say, raw, Vue, or Svelte files in a dependency, you probably want to properly apply the actual transforms on them when we're building with pre-bundling them with ES-Build. Currently, there's a bug when your Vue files have, like, say, relative imports, it creates duplicated modules. It's a kind of a complicated problem, but it's something we also intend to fix. And finally, there's some small things like support native import maps. That's actually a thing I just noticed that we currently doesn't respect native import maps. So this is a nice thing to have because supposedly we want Vite to any code that is valid in native should be valid in Vite as well. So that's one thing we need to fix.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the updates. I was surprised when you tweeted about now Vite is even faster than before. I was like, gosh, it was super fast before. How can it be even faster? So that's great. Very, very great to hear that. We do have just 3 minutes left. Any hot topics or things that you guys want to discuss? No, the one question I probably have is, I've not personally used Pinia yet. And I know that it's kind of starting to people to discuss a bit more. And so has any of you used it in production, or is you thinking about migrating Vuex to Pinia, and what is the taking? I know that it was discussed in some of the slides and some of the people. So Yuki, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to share on this. I think I was really surprised at how simple Pinia is. I think it's very easy to think of a library like a state machine and think, oh, I'm going to get a whole bunch of basically crap that goes with it. But Pinia is really, really straightforward. And if you can use Vue, then you can use Pinia. It's just a really nice way to break up your state. We're actually using it with Vuex as well at the same time, simply because it was a better alternative for us than just using the composition API to manage state. So yeah, I think people should definitely go ahead and give it a try, and they'll be surprised at just how much benefit you can get very quickly with Pinia.
Yeah, so from our perspective, one of the major drawbacks of the current Vuex 4 API in terms when used with Vue 3 is, first of all, it doesn't have proper TypeScript support. So a lot of the areas for TypeScript is missing in Vuex, mostly, especially when you're dispatching actions, like which are string based. Like it just doesn't have the full type coverage, right? So another thing is when you say want to do state management, when you do a lot of state management, or when you write a lot of composables and composition API code, Vuex just feels stuck in a different paradigm. So this is why. In some cases, some users just use a single reactive object as a store, right? But then a single reactive object has the problem of not working with Devtools. It makes it a bit too freeform, right? So Pinia is kind of like in the middle, where you still have some sort of convention. It works with DevTools, it works with SSR. It's really well thought out, right? Most of the problems you'd have to solve with the state management system, it kind of deals with those problems, but at the same time stays simple and out of your way. So this is something we are really considering to sort of, in fact, like if you look at the Define Store API of Pinia, we've been having an RFC about Vuex, like what the next version of Vuex is like, and it turned out to be very different from Vuex 4 and more like Pinia. So Pinia is kind of like what we wanted to do in the RFC. So this is something I want to talk with Eduardo, who is unfortunately not here today. So we want to go over this and see, maybe we will probably recommend Pinia over Vuex, especially for Vue 3 users, especially if you need TypeScript, right? And there's also a possibility for us to even have it built in, right? Like import Define Store from Vue. Wouldn't sounds pretty good to me, right? So there are a lot of possibilities. So we can we'll probably go over this with the team just to make sure we're on the same page. But I personally, if I need a state management system, I like today with Vue 3 with TypeScript, I would definitely pick Pinia over Vuex 4. Yeah.
That's amazing. And if you do it, even I think 99% of the people will follow. Let's say 90, let's change it. But amazing. So looking forward to hear that, probably, to see probably more information on the Twitter feeds and information shared by the community. The time is actually up. So we have completed this fantastic event. It's been great to hear all the different things. People are very excited about everything, all the new things at the chat that we discussed on both in Twitter and on YouTube. So I'll pass the mic to Tracy to do the closing note, but thank you so much for the fantastic event and discussion that we had.
Yeah, thank you so much. Evan, do you have anything to say before we say bye?
Not much. Thanks everyone for attending, and really appreciate. It's really exciting to be able to, because we haven't had real conferences for so long. It's and even for online conferences, we mostly just give the talk and don't get a chance for speakers or team members to hang out together like this. So I think this is great. And thanks for everyone. Thanks for all the updates, great stuff. And hopefully we'll see the ecosystem. So after the doc switch, I'm hoping really the doc switch will, the new docs will help just push the whole ecosystem start to massively adopt Vue 3. So thanks.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. All these folks are typically on Twitter. So if you go to vuemeetup.com, you'll actually see everyone's Twitter handles and everything like that. You can follow along after that. And, we hope to continue the conversation on Twitter, on GitHub, and on Discord. So see you then. And thanks everyone for joining.
See you. Bye-bye.
See you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.